Hello, my wonderful creatives. Welcome back to another Pocky Art Journal spread, one of the last, if not the last. I did have to put a paint palette behind this so that it would kind of lie flat because the front is so thick. So today we are going to do a kind of monochromatic color scheme here. These are all shades of blue. We're not going to follow these exact shades of blue just because, and I'm losing my voice already. Sorry, just because I don't have those exact shades and I don't want to mix them. I'm going to start with my gelatos, and we're going to do sort of an ombre effect on the background. Now I did use the gesso with the baking soda in it so that it absorbs water. And I'm starting with the darkest colors. The second color actually ended up being darker than the first color. I did not have them in order for some reason, so I just kind of went over the top of the first one again, just to make it darker. And now I'm just putting the lighter colors on. And we're going to use some water and blend them. I'm first using a sponge just to smear the colors all together. So that they won't be streaky when I apply the water. This is a process that gets your fingers dirty. But once you go over it with the water, then it's much better. So I'm just using a cheap chip brush here. I'm not using a watercolor brush at all. Really, this is background, so it doesn't matter. As long as you have a brush that doesn't shed bristles all over everything, you're good to go. Now generally when you do an ombre effect, you should work light to dark. I just felt like doing whatever, so I started with the darkest color first, but now I'm starting at the top and then going toward the bottom. The blending doesn't have to be perfect, this is just background. So now I'm taking a marker, and this is an alcohol marker, strictly because it's the color gray that I wanted. An acrylic marker might have been better, but this worked fine, so this is just what I used. And we are going to make a tree. And I'm just sticking branches in here wherever. A lot of this gets covered up, so you don't really have to be detailed with it. I'm going over this a second time to make it darker, because the alcohol marker really wasn't as dark as I needed it to be. Particularly toward the bottom where the blue gets darker. So now I'm going to add some texture to my tree. I'm not doing traditional tree bark, I'm doing a combination of ovals and circles. There's a scrap of paper that I have that's got these raised ovals and circles on them, and it looks really cool. It's kind of like, not really a snake skin, but like a lizard skin sort of pattern, and it's really neat, and I wanted to incorporate that in my tree just for visual effect. So that's what I'm doing here, is adding ovals and circles just at random. Now you may be thinking, why would you want a lizard skin tree? But, you know, why not? It's unexpected. That's what I like about art. I really like the unexpected. Art that looks like exactly what you see all around you is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I like to add whimsy. I think it's fun to create things that you can't see in real life. So now I'm just busy filling all of these in. It was quite a tedious process, but until I got the outlines done, I didn't know that I wanted to fill them in. So, you know, you try things and you see how they look, and then you add something else or change your plan. We just make things up as we go along here. That's what an art journal is for. So now that I'm done with that, I decided it still wasn't dark enough. So I'm going in with my ink pen and outlining. I'm outlining both the tree and branches, and I'm going to outline the pattern on the bark. And as you can see, it is much darker. So now I'm taking my white acrylic marker and going in between all of the dots just to make them stand out even more. If I had figured this out ahead of time, I would have painted the whole tree white and then done the dots over top. But I kind of like doing it this way. I didn't like doing it this way because it was tricky trying to get in between the dots. And I did have to go back with the ink and redraw some of it. But I like the effect of it better because when I went through with the acrylic marker, it didn't make everything bright white like it would if I had just painted it first. It's kind of got some of that blue showing through. So it's a little more interesting, a little more shaded, not just plain white. So I've got my paint palette, and this paint palette is just a piece of glass that I took out of a picture frame, and I put electrical tape around the edge, both so I wouldn't cut myself, because yes, I did cut myself on it, and so I can see where the edges of my palette are and keep it from sticking to the desk so much. Makes it easier to pick up off the desk. So I'm starting with some Payne's Gray mixed with some phthalo blue. And we're doing the darkest leaves first. I've got a round brush, and I'm just taking my brush and touching the tip of the brush and then pressing toward the middle of the leaf and then letting up on the pressure. The same kind of thing that I did in my last video with watercolors, if you have seen that one. So we're just going to add leaves at random. And they shouldn't all be stuck directly on the branches because, you know, there are so many little twigs and things that come off of branches that you don't really see, and the leaves end up in between the big branches, so that's what we want to do with our leaves here. Even though it looks like they're floating in midair, they're not going to be by the time we're done. So now we're going to go with a slightly lighter blue. This is a cerulean blue. And we're just going to keep adding leaves in lighter colors over top of the dark colors. It's really not difficult once you break it down to make a good picture. I think a lot of people who want to make art are kind of afraid to start because they tend to think that art is a talent rather than a skill. And, you know, some people are really talented artists. They have just an innate understanding of how things go, how they're shaded, how they're shaped. But everybody has to start out with skill. Even if you have talent, if you don't learn how to use that talent, it's not going to go anywhere. And you don't need talent to learn the skill. Sometimes you find out you have a talent you didn't know you had once you learn the skill. It's all about technique. Once you break it down, it's really not difficult at all. Now I've got a gray marker, and this is kind of a silver gray, but not too silvery. It's not really metallic. And I'm just adding highlights in those ovals and circles, just because they were looking a little bit flat. So what I did was I touched it on one side of the circle, and then I kind of drew a little line on one side of each oval. And that added more interest and depth. And I was hoping it would give the paint time to dry, but of course it doesn't, so have to use the hairdryer. Now you can really see skill a lot if you look at hyper-realistic paintings. That is absolutely skill. I mean, that is skill to the max, where you look at a photo or you look at something in real life and you draw or paint exactly what you see. It takes hours and hours and hours, and it's a skill that anybody can learn how to do. But of course, there's more to art than realism. In any case, skills start with learning simple shapes, learning how to see what's in front of you, and breaking down things so that it's not a whole shape, but multiple shapes and multiple shades and multiple hues. Learning how to see is really a key component to doing art. There's a wonderful book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain that really teaches you how to see. And this was the textbook in my very first high school art class that taught me how to see. I don't consider myself a talented artist whatsoever. I'm simply a technical artist who has some crazy ideas. So we are going to make tags next. So I've got my scrapbook paper and my tag punch. If you don't have a tag punch, you can just use the scissors and cut tags out, and then you get them the size you want to. Some of these scrapbook papers are double-sided and some are not. It really didn't make a difference to me for this particular project, as long as both sides weren't crazy busy with the pattern. Now I'm not going with the blue theme here with the tags. I kind of wanted the tags to be the focal point and the part that stands out the most, so I'm going with whatever colors I feel like. All right, my tags are all punched out, and now I'm going to put, what do you call them? Not grommets. The word's escaping me. I'm going to call them grommets just because I can't think of the name of them. These little grommety things on here. So I have this little tool. This set came together. Actually, I bought it at a garage sale. And it's got a little punch that punches the hole, and then it's got this tool with a little star shape on it, and you put the grommet through the hole after you punch the hole. And this was a thicker piece of paper, so I had difficulty with this one, had to do it twice. I'm using my tweezers because it's easier to grip it. And then you put the little grommet through, and you flip it over, and you put the star tool on there, and you pound it flat, and it makes kind of a star shape on the back and holds it in place. And I did have to eventually use the tweezers to get the grommets out because they're slippery. And I've been thinking a lot about gratitude lately. I do have chronic health issues, and sometimes I get in my own head where I'm just miserable and all my thoughts are negative. So in order to counteract that, I start thinking about all the things that I'm grateful for. And that's been on my mind lately. Yesterday I had a rough day, so I went through and told myself, okay, enough of this negative talk. I'm going to list every single thing that I'm grateful for. So that's how this theme came about, and I'm going to write on the not patterned side of the tag the things I'm grateful for, and then I'm going to do various heart shapes on the front. I'm using my white Jelly Roll pen just to make that stand out more. I wrote sleep on that one because I have such a hard time sleeping. I've been struggling with my sleep for the last decade, and there are nights when it's really difficult and the adrenaline is running and I go into really bad places in my mind. So the times when I get sleep, I am super grateful for it. And of course, I'm writing things like friends, family. This one is nature. I live out in the country and it soothes my broken nervous system very much to be surrounded by nature. It's nice and quiet out here too, and I like that. And the last one is creativity. I first was going to write art, but I also wanted to write music, so I just decided to go with creativity because that covers both of them. So my tags are finished, and I'm going to attach them to the tree using thread. Now I had a hard time deciding what color thread I wanted to use. I didn't know if I wanted it to blend in with the rest of the picture or if I wanted to do a contrasting color. It's kind of a subtle thing, but it can still have an impact. So ultimately I decided to kind of match the color of the thread with the color of the tags. And they will hang from the branches like so. I'm just tying the thread into a knot on the top where the grommet is. I still can't think of the word for what that is either. And I've got all my threads on there, and they're all different colored threads. It's hard to see in the video. And I'm placing them to figure out where I want to put them, because I do still want to add a sentiment to this. So I needed to have space for that. This is Fabri-Tac glue, which is for fabrics, but it's very sticky, like immediately. And I knew it would hold the thread in place a lot better than PVA glue, which takes a long time to dry. The Fabri-Tac takes a while to dry, but it's tacky right away. And when I set the bottle down, the glue like comes out of the top just because of the suction inside the bottle. So I'm just taking some on my finger and spreading it onto the thread. So this glue is very tacky. You have to be careful that the tags don't stick to it. And when you do this, don't go all the way to the tag with the thread. You want to have a little bit of thread right above the tag that isn't glued down so that you can pick up the tag and turn it over. And now at the top where the thread ends, I'm just adding some leaves over the top in white so you can't really see where the thread ends. And then putting some other random white leaves in there just for balance. Now I decided the edges of my tags really could use some definition, so I'm taking my Posca marker and making the edges black. Ideally, I would have done this before I glued the threads down, but you know, I'm making it work. That's the thing with art, is sometimes we do things and then we take a look at it and think, oh, I could do this differently. It's all about adjusting on the fly. So all that's left is to add my word, which of course will be gratitude. And I'm freehanding this because I'm grateful that my hands work well enough that I can write. So there it is. And the tags just hang there, and you can flip them over and see what's underneath. All the things you're grateful for. I hope you enjoyed this idea. I really liked it. Thank you so much for coming along, and I will see you next time.